Imagine a family gathering. Everyone's arguing and there's basically a war over the table. But instead of arguments, it's like an actual war. This was basically the Balkan Wars, where a squad of feisty teen nations, aka Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, and Montenegro, ganged up on their abusive stepdad, the Ottoman Empire, in a messy family feud over squatting rights, or territory. Let's meet the Balkan family. Serbia was like the ambitious crypto bro, who can't stop yapping about how he wants an Adriatic beach house, also known as Albania. His dream is to unite the Slavs. Bulgaria is the gym rat of the group, with serious military muscle, flexing for Macedonia and Thrace, causing a bit of sibling rivalries. Greece is like the history buff, that always talks about the Roman Empire, and would really appreciate Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire getting the hell out of his claimed territory. While Romania, of course, is the opportunistic shoplifter, plotting on how to pickpocket Dobruja and Transylvania. And don't forget about Austria-Hungary, who isn't a part of the family, but instead the annoying neighbor, who supposedly only wants peace and quiet, but is always ready to start a fight. But what if the siblings actually compromised between each other and created a mutually beneficial Balkan alliance? Stay tuned for the chaos. Alright, let's cut to the chase in this Balkan family saga. After the London Conference, Serbia's big dream of an Adriatic port hit a wall. Austria-Hungary wouldn't have it. Fearing a strong Serbia would spark South Slav rebellions in their own ethnic mess. Meanwhile, this trust between Serbia and Bulgaria ran deep, born from years of border beef and competing claims over Macedonia, the prized family relic that both sides wanted to claim as their own historic birthright. However, Serbia had already occupied most of Macedonia, and with their dream of an Adriatic beach house gone, they weren't so willing to give away their new toy. In our timeline, Bulgaria, thinking they're the biggest guy in the room, decided to start a fight with Serbia. But this only led to a legendary beatdown, where all their siblings and their stepdad ganged up on them. But what if Serbia decided to placate their Bulgarian bros and turned west towards their Adriatic ambitions? Teaming up could give them the edge over Austria-Hungary and finally secure both nations' interests, turning old grudges into risky power plays. Shifting to Bulgaria's viewpoint, we see a nation driven to claim Macedonia as it was due under the Serbo-Bulgarian Treaty. Despite deep-rooted distrust with Serbia over territorial rivalries, for Bulgaria, the pros of the Serbians' alliance proposal include securing Macedonia outright, which would bolster Bulgaria's military capabilities, so it would kinda be like an Iron steroid shot. However, the cons loomed large. A potential all-out war with Austria-Hungary, who were fiercely guarding their influence and could mobilize relatively quickly thanks to their large standing army and established mobilization plan. However, Tsar Ferdinand wasn't a stranger to making big gambles, as evidenced by Bulgaria's aggressive launch into the Second Balkan War. So I see it as possible for Bulgaria to accept this deal. The formation of this new Balkan Pact would ripple outwards. Austria-Hungary would likely respond with ultimatums and military action to block Serbia's Adriatic access. Romania, not part of the Balkan Pact, might eye up southern Dobruja, yet their desire for Transylvania could sway them towards opportunism, potentially aligning them against Austria-Hungary if they smell blood in the water, as Transylvania was a lure too tempting for Romania not to bite into. Meanwhile, the ever-present threat of an Ottoman invasion seeking to reclaim their lost territory would force Bulgaria's hand, likely requiring a hasty deal with Greece for a mutual defense pact. This would mean that Bulgaria has to give up parts of Thrace, so Greece is happy and they now have a border with their historic enemy. After all, in the case of war with the Habsburgs, Greece could just young Thrace anyways. With their flanks sort of secure, the Balkan Pact isn't looking that bad. But would there actually be a war? In a best-case scenario, diplomacy could win the day. The pact might seek a peaceful resolution through a great power conference, which could be like a neighborhood conference that finally shuts up the Austro-Hungarian Heron. After all, the Council of Europe had mediated Balkan crises before, turning potential powder kegs into awkward truces. But let's be real, that's a long shot. In this alternate timeline, the Balkan Pact turns diplomatic chess into a high-stakes game of geopolitical Jenga. Unlike 1914's slow-burn diplomacy, mired in delays and second thoughts, this scenario fast-tracks the conflict. The Serbo-Bulgarian alliance would become an instant provocation, making Austria-Hungary's response less about manufacturing pretexts and more about immediate territorial defense. Great power war machines rev up faster. Russia proclaims to defend its Slavic bros and mobilizes, Germany drops its blank check, and France cheers for a showdown. Where history took weeks of telegrams, this version promises lightning-fast military escalation. The Balkan powder keg doesn't just spark, it detonates like a quiet kid with a suspiciously large backpack. Italy is pissed at Serbia's Adriatic grab, seeing it as a direct threat to their own regional dominance. They will likely side with the Central Powers because of that. Romania would play it safe at first, staying neutral to gauge the outcome before swooping in for opportunistic gains. While the Ottomans, ever the watchful outsider, would hold back initially, waiting for the perfect moment to exploit any weaknesses and reclaim lost ground. As the war kicks into high gear, Germany decides to speedrun its invasion of France. Belgium and Luxembourg, more like a willkommen mat for the German war machine. Britain, seeing Belgian neutrality violated, declares war. But even with the British joining, France isn't feeling so good. The abrupt Italian entry into the war has diverted French forces from the main front to cover their thinly held Alpine line. The battle in the mountains won't look too different to what happened in our timeline, except now it's taking place in the French Alps. The Italians continue to use their tried and tested tactic of charging men into fortified mountain positions. So there probably won't be a breakthrough in the Alps, but France still has to man the line, meaning they have to start preparing for an influx of German tourists in Paris. But here's where things get spicy. Austria-Hungary, the empire that invented bureaucratic incompetence, finds itself in a hilarious military pickle. Their armies, which historically operated with the organization of a group of thugs, are getting absolutely demolished by Russian forces. The Galician front disintegrates, and their Balkan offensives are as successful as trying to make a business in the Balkans without being part of the mafia. Germany realizes its allies are about as useful as a Tinder premium subscription when you're a 1 out of 10. They're forced to split their legendary war machine, sending reinforcements to prop up the Austro-Hungarian Empire. As the war goes on, the Western Front gets quiet. With Russia having their hands full, nationalist elements in the Ottoman Empire start salivating over the idea of reclaiming their, as one general put it, slaves in the Balkans. Just like in our timeline, the Ottoman entry into the war is a messy affair, driven more by ambitious young nationalist officers than the Sultan's deliberate strategy. A group of pro-German young Turk officers, led by Enver Pasha, essentially hijack foreign policy. In a move that would make diplomatic historians facepalm, these officers secretly negotiate with Germany, essentially signing the Ottoman Empire into the war without broad concessions. The German battleships Goeben and Breslau, which had dramatically escaped British pursuit and found sanctuary in Ottoman waters, become a symbolic trigger for the war. Germany gifts these new ships to the Ottoman Navy as a sort of welcome bonus for joining the Central Powers. By November 1914, the Ottomans are technically at war, despite most of their leadership being about as prepared as a cat is for a swimming lesson. This triggers the Greco-Bulgarian Defense Pact, and so a bloodthirsty Greece joins the Allies. The Ottomans wouldn't make any significant progress in the Balkan or Caucasian front. The war is turning into a stalemate for the Central Powers, with progress only being made on the Eastern Front. The Entente would want to convince Romania to join the war, luring them with stories of a Russian counterattack and a naval invasion of the Ottoman Empire. The Romanians, always looking to permanently borrow something, joined the war in early 1915. This is combined with an allied land and naval invasion of the Ottomans. However, in this timeline, the pressure on the Bosphorus is too much for the old man to handle, leading to the capture of Constantinople and the subsequent Ottoman surrender. This boosts Allied morale, which would be something the Central Powers would be in desperate need of, as they're struggling to defend the new front in Austria-Hungary. By 1916, the writing was on the wall. Allied offensives are launched on all fronts: the Somme, Verdun, the Brusilov offensive, and an offensive on the Serbian front. Under this immense pressure, the weakest link breaks, and Austria-Hungary, facing collapse, sues for peace. Italy would follow and make a favorable peace that would probably avoid occupation. Germany is now alone, and despite reluctance to face its reality, the empire has no other option than to surrender. Or maybe they do, I don't know, maybe someone made a video about that. Wink wink. There is a possibility of a favorable peace deal that involves the input of German diplomats. But a harsher peace is also possible, since Woodrow Wilson's 14 points would probably not be involved. But let's get back to where we started. The Balkan states would be overjoyed. Serbia would form Yugoslavia and Romania would annex Transylvania. Bulgaria would not have a lot of territory to expand into, but they would still keep their position as the muscle of the Balkans, as they have been less damaged by the war. Greece will be able to realize the Megali idea, or at least a more tame version of it, as Constantinople would probably be under joint occupation and likely become a League of Nations mandate. This scenario has had a lot of optimistic views on Balkan politics. But if we're real, even in these good endings, there are still wars that could happen in the Balkans. The main issue would probably be Bulgarian and Greek claims. One possible ending is that the Bulgarians want to expand further, so they would attempt to make a truce with Romania and Serbia, which Serbia at least would agree to since Bulgaria defended them against the Austrians in the war. This possible Third Balkan War might pit Serbia and Bulgaria and possibly the Ottomans against Greece and Romania, with the final peace probably looking something like this. Alternatively, Bulgaria could chill for a bit, which is kinda hard when Ferdinand is your leader, but in that case, Greece would probably try to go in on Turkey, and maybe even occupy Constantinople, which would probably get them in some trouble. But if you aren't ready to leave the Balkans just yet, you should check out this video. See you there! Wait, why are you still here? Oh, you wanna see the Historinator score? It's a 0 out of 10. The Balkans can never prosper.